Joining us now is Ali Soufan, former FBI special agent whose interrogation proved the first 9/11 link to al-Qaeda just after the attacks, the link that led to the start of the Afghanistan war. His new book, of course, is called The Black Banners, the Inside Story of 9/11 and the War Against Al-Qaeda. Ali Soufan, it is great to have you back. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You were there, literally there in the room as we connected 9/11 to al-Qaeda and al-Qaeda to Afghanistan, and eventually thus started the Afghanistan war. Given that start and our goals then, does it make sense to you that 10 years on, we still plan to have tens of thousands of troops there for years to come?
It's interesting. If you asked me that when we figured out that al-Qaeda was behind the attacks of 9/11 and on the eve of the Afghanistan war, I could have told you now. It's really impossible to think that 10 years later, we're still in Afghanistan. And the Afghanistan war lasted more than World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War. This is really interesting phenomena. And as you mentioned, it's a new charted water for us.
When you think about this as a counterterrorism specialist, and you as an FBI special agent really became a counterterrorism operative at the highest levels, the whole idea of why we are still there in Afghanistan is counterinsurgency, is the idea that our presence will provide security and essentially build up Afghan institutions so that the Afghan people want their government more than they want this insurgency, and that will have an effect on whether or not that society still produces terrorists that can pose a threat to us. Do you see those things as linked? Do you believe that argument? Does it work for you?
No, I truly don't believe that argument, especially when it comes to Afghanistan. I don't believe in the argument of nation-state building in Afghanistan. You know, Afghanistan is divided into many different factions, many different tribal factions, many different ethnic factions. You have the Uzbeks, you have the Tajik, you have the Hazara, who are Shiites. You have the Pashtun. The Pashtun tribes, they are divided between northern Pashtun and southern Pashtun. And if you look at the landscape 10 years later, of at least from the insurgency side, you have the Taliban. And not all the Taliban are Mullah Omar Taliban. There are different factions based on tribal and clans and so forth. But also there's the Haqqani network. And the Haqqani network don't actually represent Haqqani network. They are the proxy for Pakistan and the ISI in Afghanistan. So there's a lot of regional issues that we have to take into consideration, a lot of tribal issues that we have to take into consideration, a lot of ethnic issues that we have to take into consideration. For example, the Hazara, their loyalty is to Iran, and Iran has a lot of control over them. The Uzbeks, they have very strong relationship with Russia. The Tajik, they have very strong relationship with Tajikistan and with different allies that they have in Central Asia. Haqqani, Jalaluddin Haqqani, historically, from as early as the Soviet Jihad in Afghanistan, he was the ISI's main man. He was the deputy of Galbuddin Hikmatyar. Maybe a lot of people forget that name, but that name was very important in Afghanistan during the Soviet Jihad. And after the Soviets left Afghanistan in 1989, the leaders of the Mujahideen start fighting with each other. The Pakistanis said, look, we cannot tolerate this is happening in Afghanistan because Afghanistan is a strategic depth into Pakistan. So they created what we know the Taliban today under Mullah Omar. And the moment they created the Taliban and the Taliban took over Kabul and defeated all the other leaders of the Mujahideen, immediately Haqqani switched alliances and he became part of the Taliban because the ISI asked him to be part of the Taliban, and Mullah Omar gave him a position as a minister for tribal affairs in the very first Taliban government. So now the strategy that we have in Afghanistan is basically a strategy to pull out in 2014. The Pakistan strategy is how they can have their proxy in control of Afghanistan after we pull out. And that's what we see today, that struggle that's happening and the emergence of Haqqani network as a major player in Afghanistan.
And in the absence of an indefinite American presence and us adopting Afghanistan as the 51st state, there's no effect that we're going to have on that complexity.
You know, these people have been killing each other for hundreds of years, and they will continue, unfortunately, to kill each other for hundreds of years. We need to leave, but we need to leave in a way that we can guarantee that Afghanistan won't be a launch pad for transnational terrorist groups to attack the West and attack the United States. So in order to have these security guarantees, we have to have regional agreements and tribal agreements in the country. You can put 200,000 troops in Afghanistan, and that's not going to make a difference.
The book is called Black Banners, the Inside Story of 9/11 and the War Against Al-Qaeda. Ali, because you are here, I have to ask you something personally as a favor. I have been using your book essentially as an almanac since it came out. Will you publish an e-book-like version of an index for this book? There's no freaking index in this book, and I'm constantly looking stuff up in it, and it really stops me for hours.
Well, that's actually a very good question.
Is Gopher Black? Now that he's been picked by Mitt Romney, Gopher Black stars in your book. You need an index, dude.
Well, we had an index. However, the CIA, as part of the redaction, pulled it out, and they said that we cannot put the index. We cannot even put a picture of me and my wife in the book, in heaven's sake. But as I mentioned in the very first page of the book, we're working on that, and we're hoping all the redactions will be taken care of, and we're hoping that the index that we have, but it's considered old redacted, will be part of the book.
I may start producing a wiki index just of Mitt Romney advisors in your book between now and then. Don't rush me. Ali Soufan, thank you so much for being here. It's
Thank
good
you,
to see you, sir.
Rachel. Thank you.